I overheard my fiancée tell her mother, "He's just a pathetic placeholder until someone with real potential comes along. His face isn't even worth putting in our wedding photos," she mocked. So I had the photographer capture her reaction when I played the recording and walked out with her bridesmaid-to-be. She's been begging my friends to delete the photos for 9 days straight. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Sup, Reddit. Using a throwaway cause my main has too much personal shit on it. So I was engaged to my girl until about 2 weeks ago, when everything imploded. I, 29 male, was recently engaged to my girlfriend of 4 years, 27 female, Liv. We met at this charity marathon where I was working. I run my own graphic design business and was helping out with the event branding. Banners, t-shirts, the whole package. Liv was running in the event. She approached my booth afterward to compliment the shirt designs. She was hot, fun, confident, and had this laugh that made me smile. We exchanged numbers then, and we hit it off right away. I'm a graphic designer, not some famous artist or anything, but I do all right with a mix of corporate clients and some creative projects on the side. Got my own little studio downtown, a couple part-time employees, and enough steady clients to live comfortably without stressing too much. I'm passionate about what I do and thought I'd found someone who appreciated that. Thinking now how there were definitely signs I ignored. Like seriously, I was colorblind to an entire communist parade happening right in front of me. When we first met, Liv seemed genuinely interested in my work. She'd ask questions about my design process, compliment my portfolio, even brag about me to her friends. But somewhere around the 1-year mark, things started to shift. It was subtle at first. She'd jokingly compare my career to her finance bro friends. Imagine if you worked at megacorp like Jeff. We could vacation in the Maldives instead of just Miami. Or she'd scroll through Instagram, showing me these ridiculous mansions saying, "This is where we'd live if you worked at that big agency downtown instead of your little studio." She was always pushing me to apply to these massive corporate design firms I had zero interest in. My own studio was doing fine, growing steadily, decent clients, work I was proud of, but apparently that wasn't enough for her increasingly expensive taste. Liv works in pharmaceutical sales. Expense account, designer everything, BMW leased through her company. She pulls in around $180,000 with bonuses, which is solid money. I make about $120,000 from my business, which isn't exactly poverty level, but to hear Liv talk about it, you'd think I was panhandling outside the grocery store. She was hot, ambitious, and for some reason, picked me. At least that's what I thought. Then there were the comments about my clothes. I dress well, clean, professional, but not flashy. I'm not dropping $500 on a freaking t-shirt just because some Instagram influencer wore it. Liv started buying me these designer clothes for birthdays and Christmas. "You need to look the part if you want to attract higher-paying clients," she'd say. I appreciated the gesture at first, until I realized it wasn't a gesture. It was a freaking makeover. Whenever we went to her company events, she'd give me these coaching sessions beforehand. "Don't talk too much about your independent projects. Focus on the corporate clients." Or, "Maybe don't mention that pro bono work you did for the animal shelter." It was like she was embarrassed by the parts of my career that I was most proud of. The red flags kept coming. She'd make these little comments about my potential and how I just needed to think bigger. Whenever we'd hang with her work friends, she'd introduce me as my fiancé, he's creative, never mentioning my business or accomplishments. Like being creative was some cute hobby I did between real jobs. Then there was the way she acted whenever her friend Tessa was around. Tessa's cool as hell. Talented tattoo artist, down to earth, wicked sense of humor. We got along great from the first time we met. Liv would get weirdly competitive around her, then talk mad shit about her the second she left. "Did you see those new tattoos? So trashy. I don't know how she expects to be taken seriously looking like that." I always defended Tessa, which led to some pretty arguments. Liv also had this passive-aggressive way of criticizing my friends. My buddy Marco has been my best friend since college. He's a music teacher, super talented dude. Liv would always find ways to point out how he should get a real job or grow up eventually. My other close friend Danny runs a food truck, makes the best tacos in the city, and Liv would literally refuse to eat there because it was street food. I ignored all this shit because, well, I loved her. Plus, she had these moments where she'd be incredibly supportive and loving. She'd bring me coffee during late-night design sessions, or brag about my latest project to her parents. The highs were high enough that I overlooked the lows. When I proposed, I spent 3 months designing a custom ring with this local jeweler. Nothing flashy. She'd mentioned wanting something unique rather than traditional. When I gave it to her, she seemed thrilled. Posted it all over Instagram, called all her friends. 2 weeks back, we were finalizing our engagement party plans. Liv's parents were in town helping out. They've always been fine. Her dad's quiet, seems perpetually tired. Her mom is basically Liv in 30 years. Same obsessions, same compliments, same designer everything. I came home early to surprise everyone with reservations at this fancy new restaurant Liv had been hinting about for weeks. As I walked in, I heard Liv and her mom in the kitchen. Was about to announce myself when I caught my name. Mom, just drop the Zane thing already, Liv snapped, sounding annoyed. I'm just concerned, honey. Is this really what you want? A mediocre life with a graphic designer? Her mom said it like my job was collecting garbage or something. I froze in the hallway. What came next made me feel like someone punched through my chest and ripped out whatever was inside. It's temporary, Liv said, voice lowered. He's just a pathetic placeholder until someone with real potential comes along. He's stable. His little design thing gives him flexible hours so he can run errands for me, and he thinks I'm out of his league. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might puke on the spot. But the conversation wasn't over. But the wedding photos, her mom whispered. You'll have to look at his face in them forever. Liv laughed, a sound I used to love but now felt like acid in my ears. His face isn't even worth putting in our wedding photos. I've already talked to Jules about the photography package. She can work magic with angles and lighting. We'll basically minimize him as much as possible. Jules, our wedding photographer who Liv insisted on booking despite the insane cost. Now I understood why. She needed someone who could make me basically disappear from my own freaking wedding album. And what about if someone better comes along before the wedding? Her mom asked, like they were discussing a business transaction instead of my life. Then I'll figure it out. Breaking an engagement is better than a divorce. There was a pause. Then Liv added, Did you see what Tessa wore to dinner last week? Those trashy tattoos showing everywhere. She thinks she's so special with her art. She's just jealous because Zane used to have a thing for her before we met. As if he'd ever go for someone like that when he could have me. Her mom laughed. That girl with all the drawings on her body? So classless. I only invite her to stuff so people can see who I have to put up with in Zane's world. Makes me look better by comparison. I must have made a noise because they suddenly shut up. I backed out silently, got in my car, and just drove for hours. The woman I loved, who I was planning a whole life with, saw me as a pathetic placeholder, not even worth being visible in our wedding photos. I didn't confront her that night, or the next day. I acted normal, or as normal as you can, when your entire reality just got sculpted by the person you thought you'd grow old with. Told her I had a client emergency when I got home late. She barely looked up from her phone, just asked if I'd remembered to pick up her dry cleaning. I had, because that's what pathetic placeholders do, right? Before I left the house that night, I pulled out my phone and started recording. Call it a designer's instinct for documentation, but I needed proof of what I heard. Something concrete to remind me I wasn't imagining things while I drove around the city at 2 a.m., questioning every moment of our relationship. Instead of confronting her, I made a plan. Our engagement party was that weekend. Fancy venue, about 60 people. Family, friends, co-workers. Liv had handled most of the planning, obsessing over every detail from the lighting to the freaking napkin folds. Had to be Instagram perfect, as she kept saying. The next day, I went through the motions. Smiled, nodded, agreed with whatever she said about the party. Inside, I felt completely hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and replaced them with static. I kept replaying the conversation in my head. Pathetic placeholder. 4 years of my life, reduced to those 2 words. I made 3 changes to her perfect plans. First, I called my buddy Ren, who runs a photography business. We've been friends since design school. He went the photography route while I focused on graphic design. Told him I needed high-quality, candid, emotional shots at the party. Paid him triple his normal rate to ensure he understood the importance. You sure about this, man? He asked when I explained what I needed. Never been more sure of anything in my life, I replied. Then I got the audio from my phone recording professionally cleaned up by another friend who works in sound engineering. You could hear every word crystal clear, like they were standing right next to you saying this shit. Then connected with the venue's tech guy to hook it to their sound system. Told him it was a surprise for my fiancée. Technically wasn't lying. Then I reached out to Tessa. This was the hardest part. We'd always gotten along, but I wasn't sure how she'd react. We met for coffee and I played her the recording. Her face went from shocked to furious to sad in 10 seconds. That freaking beep, she whispered. I always knew she was fake. But this, she looked up at me, eyes filled with genuine concern. Are you okay? No one had asked me that yet. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. I explained my plan and asked if she'd help. She was all in without hesitation. Just tell me what you need me to do. The pieces were falling into place. Liv kept texting me about last-minute details for the party. Did I confirm the flowers? Would my parents be there on time? Had I picked up my new suit that she'd selected? I responded to everything with perfect pleasantness while feeling absolutely nothing inside. The night before the party, Liv and I were in bed. She was scrolling through Instagram, showing me photos of the venue from another event. Our photos are going to be so much better, she said, not looking at me. I've planned everything perfectly. I made a non-committal sound, staring at the ceiling. You need to make sure you stand at the right angle when we do the official photos, she continued. Jules said the lighting is tricky. Wouldn't want my face to ruin the photos, I said. She didn't even catch it, just nodded. Exactly. The composition needs to be perfect. That night, I slept on the couch, telling her I had a last-minute project to finish. In reality, I couldn't stand to be next to her. It was the first night since we moved in together that we slept apart. She didn't seem to notice or care. The day of the party arrived. I spent the morning at my studio, allegedly finishing client work, but really just killing time until I had to go home and get ready. Liv called 4 times to remind me not to be late, to bring the champagne we'd bought specially, to make sure I wore the right tie with the new suit. I said yes to everything. When I got home, she was already halfway ready, hair done, makeup in progress. She barely looked at me as I showered and dressed. The suit was nice, I'll give her that. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored. Probably cost more than my first car. You look presentable, she said, which I now understood was her highest compliment for me. Just make sure you don't mess up your hair before photos. We arrived at the venue an hour early to check on setup. It was perfect. This converted industrial space downtown with exposed brick and hanging lights that Liv had obsessed over securing. The flowers were artfully arranged. The bar was stocked with top-shelf everything. The catering looked and smelled amazing. It was exactly what she wanted. A showcase, not for our love, but for her ability to put together a Pinterest-perfect event. Guests started arriving. My parents, looking slightly uncomfortable in the fancy setting, but genuinely happy for me. My friends, who Liv had limited to 10 invites while she had over 30. Her parents, her dad giving me the same firm handshake he always did. Her mom kissing the air next to my cheek. Colleagues from both our jobs, her college friends, people I'd met maybe once or twice. Ren arrived, camera already out, capturing candid shots. He gave me a subtle nod. Tessa showed up looking amazing. Red dress, tattoos proudly on display. Liv's smile tightened when she saw her, but she played the perfect hostess. Halfway through the night, after everyone had a few drinks, I clinked my glass. Liv stood beside me beaming, ready for her spotlight moment. This was it, the moment she'd been planning for weeks. What she didn't know was that it was the moment I'd been planning for days. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to celebrate our engagement. Before we continue, I'd like to share a special moment that helped me understand what this relationship truly means to Liv. Her smile flickered, confusion crossing her face as I nodded to the tech guy in the corner. This is a conversation I was fortunate enough to overhear between my fiancée and her mother just days ago, I said as the recording started playing. The audio quality was perfect thanks to my friend's engineering skills. Liv's voice filled the suddenly silent room. He's just a pathetic placeholder until someone with real potential comes along. His face isn't even worth putting in our wedding photos. Then came her mother's response, and Liv's continued explanation of how disposable I was. Finally, the part about Tessa being trashy and classless because of her tattoos, how she only invited her to make herself look better by comparison. I watched Liv's face transform from confusion to horror to panic as she realized what was happening. She tried to reach for the glass in my hand. Whether to stop me or throw it at me, I'll never know. From the corner of my eye, I saw Ren circling with his camera, capturing every millisecond of her meltdown. When the recording finished, I simply said, I think we can all agree that the placeholder is officially stepping aside. The ring is with your father, Liv. The silence was deafening. You could practically hear Instagram profiles being updated in real time. Then her dad, a guy who'd always treated me with respect, stood up, placed the ring box on the table, and walked out without a word. I'd given it to him when he arrived, telling him I needed to discuss something important later. He didn't say a word, just nodded and pocketed the box. Now I understand that nod. It was resignation, not surprise. Her mom started damage control. It's taken out of context. Liv was just stressed about wedding planning. She didn't mean any of it. I looked around the room. My parents looked shocked, but not exactly surprised. They'd always sensed something was off with Liv. My friends were a mix of horrified and, was that relief? Liv's friends were either staring at their phones or whispering to each other. The corporate shark's already smelling blood in the water. I nodded to Ren, confirming he got everything he needed. That's when Tessa, who'd been standing by the bar watching it all unfold, walked over to me. Without saying a word, she took my hand, and we walked out together, past Liv, whose mascara was now creating black rivers down her face, and past her mother, who was still trying to explain away the unexplainable while guests were witnessing the complete collapse of Liv's carefully constructed image. As we hit the door, Liv finally found her voice, screaming at us. "You backstabbing she screamed at Tessa. "You think you can get away with this? You fing psychopath!" Pointing at me, her makeup smudged from crying, making her look like some raccoon having a meltdown. Yeah, whatever. We didn't look back. We went to a dive bar across town. I loosened the tie Liv had picked out, ordered drink I knew she'd hate, and felt something like freedom for the first time in years. The next morning, I woke up on my buddy Marco's couch. I'd crashed there after the bar, not wanting to go back to the apartment I shared with Liv. My phone had like 30 missed calls and over 60 text messages, most from Liv, some from her mother, a few from mutual friends asking what the hell happened. I ignored them all and called my landlord, explained the situation, paid the fee to break our lease, and arranged to have my stuff moved out that day. Money well spent. Ren sent me the photos around noon. They were brutal, high-res documentation of Liv's public unmasking. Every emotion on her face in crystal clarity. I selected the most revealing ones and sent them along with the audio file to Tessa, who handled everything well. She sent it to everyone who knew Liv. Even the mutual friends who weren't invited got a copy of the whole thing. If she wanted to build her life on lies and manipulation, fine, but no one else deserved to be her next placeholder. The response was immediate. My phone exploded again, but with different messages this time. Friends expressing support, colleagues I barely knew telling me they'd always thought something was off about Liv. Her college roommate actually thanked me. Apparently Liv had pulled similar shit with her years ago. Liv's response evolved over the next few days. Day 1, denial and rage. Showed up at Marco's place somehow, screaming that I'd ruined her life, that the recording was taken out of context, that I was twisting her words. Marco, bless him, calmly told her to leave before he called the cops. Day 2, bargaining. Texts about how we could work through this, how she didn't mean what she said, how she was just venting to her mother. Calls where she cried about how much she really loved me. Emails with links to couples counselors. Day 3, more rage, but focused. Started contacting my clients, telling them I was unprofessional. Luckily, most of them had already heard about what happened through the grapevine and ignored her. 2 actually reached out to confirm I was still available for their projects. Days 4 to 9, the PR campaign. This is where we are now. 9 days of Liv calling, texting, showing up at my studio. 9 days of her begging my friends to delete the photos, claiming they're defamatory and an invasion of privacy, and trying to convince people I'm mentally unstable and manipulated the recording. But here's the thing about working in visual communication. People believe what they see, and what they saw in those photos was the truth. The story spread through our social circle like wildfire. Clients I didn't even know had heard about it were emailing me with messages of support. 3 of Liv's work friends reached out to say they'd always suspected she was fake, but never had proof. Tessa has been amazing through all this. She showed up at my studio the day after the party with coffee and pastries. We talked for hours about all the crap Liv had pulled over the years. Turns out Tessa's been hearing Jen's backhanded comments and outright insults for a decade, but kept the friendship out of habit and shared history. She told me Liv had been throwing shitty comments about her to everyone for years, trying to isolate her. We've been hanging out a lot. Nothing romantic yet, just enjoying each other's company in the aftermath of Hurricane Liv. Now about her parents. Her dad texted me a simple, "I'm sorry, she wasn't raised this way." I believe him. He always seemed trapped in his own life, like he was just going through the motions. Her mom, on the other hand, went on full damage control. She's called me a psycho, claimed I doctored the audio, and even tried to convince my mother that I've been acting erratically for months and need psychiatric help. My mom, to her credit, just said, "The only crazy thing is that he didn't leave sooner," and hung up on her. The wildest part was her sister Kay showing up at my studio 2 days after the party. Unlike Liv, Kay was actually cool, always treated me like a human being, showed genuine interest in my work, never had that status-obsessed vibe. She brought coffee and just sat there, shaking her head. I've watched Liv pull this exact same shit with two different guys, she told me. Each one was a stepping stone to someone better. She did the same thing to Jax before you, talking shit about his restaurant job while using his connections to meet better prospects. She's been like this since high school. Kay showed me texts from years ago where Liv talked about how she was upgrading to me from her ex because I knew important people in media that could help her career. Apparently, my clients in the advertising world were her real interest. Kay apologized for not warning me sooner. I tried once about a year ago, she said. Remember that dinner where I kept asking about your future plans? I was trying to see if you guys were on the same page. You seemed so happy, and Liv kept cutting me off. I did remember. Thought Kay was just making conversation. Turns out she was trying to save me. For what it's worth, she added as she was leaving. I always thought your work was dope. Still need a new logo for my bakery website if you're interested. We're grabbing lunch next week to discuss it. Liv's nuclear meltdown has been something to behold. She showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m., screaming about how I ruined her life. My neighbor called security. Then she sent a group text to our mutual friends calling me emotionally abusive for the public humiliation. Most people responded with the rolling eyes emoji. She found out where Ren's studio is and tried to bribe him to delete the photos. Offered him $5,000 cash. Ren told her he'd consider it while recording the entire conversation. Dude's a legend. Sent me the audio with a note, in case you need a sequel. My client Zach was at a bar downtown and overheard Liv telling some random guy that I hacked her phone to get the recording. According to Zach, her story had evolved to include me stalking her for weeks after she tried to let me down gently. The stories keep getting wilder. She tried to get me blacklisted with the local design community, telling people I stole client work and violated NDAs. Luckily, I've been in this business long enough that most people know me and my reputation. If anything, it backfired. Got a call from an agency I've wanted to work with for years, saying they'd heard about what happened and were impressed with my portfolio. Meeting them next week. Was this too much? Maybe. But after 4 years of being someone's unwitting placeholder, I finally showed exactly how much space I could take up. Edit. First, thanks for all the awards and DMS. Didn't expect this to resonate with so many people. Many people have reached out saying they had similar experiences. Not just with exes, but with friends, family members, co-workers, people who treated them like they were disposable, only valuable for what they could provide. It's been eye-opening how common this shit is. To answer the frequent questions, 1. Yes, this is legal in my state. One-party consent for recording 2. No, I'm not getting back with her. Are you guys seriously asking that? 3. No, I don't feel bad about it. I'm heading to my buddy's cabin up north for a few days to clear my head. We'll update if anything major happens, but honestly, I just want some peace and quiet. Update. Hey Reddit! Wasn't planning to update this, but some epic shit went down this weekend that had me laughing for 2 days straight. Figured y'all deserved the closure. So it's been 10 months since my original post. After everything happened, I focused on growing my design business. Landed some major clients, hired 2 junior designers, and moved into a bigger studio space in Austin. The change of scenery was exactly what I needed. New city, new opportunities, new perspective. My work has never been better, and I'm actually being approached by the type of clients I always wanted, not just the ones with the biggest budgets. I'm dating casually, nothing serious yet, though Tessa and I have been hanging out more lately. There's definitely something there, but we're taking it slow. She expanded her business and is killing it. Just got featured in some major art magazine. We collaborate on projects sometimes, which has been awesome. Kept in touch with some mutual friends, including Kay, Liv's sister, who's become a good friend. She moved to Houston around the same time I came to Austin and said she needed distance from her family's bullshit. Can't blame her. So what happened? My friend Zach got married this weekend back in my old city. First time I've been back in months. At the rehearsal dinner Friday night, guess who walks in? Liv, hanging on the arm of some dude who looked like he bought his personality at Brooks Brothers. Turns out she's dating the cousin of Zach's new wife. Small world, I guess, lol. The look on her face when she saw me was priceless. Pure shock, like she'd seen a ghost. Then this weird plastic smile appeared as she pretended nothing had happened. She introduced her boyfriend as Drew and mentioned he's in commercial real estate development about 20 times in 5 minutes. Every sentence was basically Drew's company this, and Drew's connections that. The guy seemed nice enough, if a bit boring, kept checking his phone during conversations, that kind of thing. I just nodded politely and went back to my conversation with Zach's college friends. Being completely unbothered was better than anything I could have planned. I could feel her watching me all night, probably waiting for some kind of confrontation. didn't give her the satisfaction. But here's where it gets good. At the reception, Drew got absolutely shit-faced. Started loudly asking people how they knew Liv. Someone mentioned she'd been engaged before. Drew was clearly surprised. To who? And someone pointed at me. I was at the bar getting a drink when I felt a hand on my shoulder. Turned around to find Drew, swaying slightly, expensive whiskey in hand. Were you seriously engaged to Livy? He asked, words slightly slurred. Yep, I said, sipping my drink. She told me she'd only had one serious boyfriend before me, and it was a brief thing that didn't work out, he said, frowning. No mention of being engaged. I shrugged. People tell different versions of their history, I guess. What happened? He pressed. Why'd you break up? I just said, ask her about our engagement party. Someone might still have the photos and audio, and walked away. Not my circus, not my monkeys anymore. An hour later, all hell broke loose on the venue's terrace. Turns out Zach's brother still had the photos and recording on his phone, and was more than happy to share. I wasn't there for the initial reveal, but according to multiple witnesses, Drew went through about 7 stages of emotion in 10 seconds. By the time I walked outside, Liv was screaming, makeup running down her face. Deja vu much? And Drew was shouting, you told me that shit was behind you. It was glorious chaos. You said you were different now, he yelled. You said you'd grown. Liv was frantically trying to explain that she'd changed and learned her lesson, and how I was manipulative for recording her. But the damage was done. They both left early, Liv practically dragging Drew to their car as he pulled away from her. The next morning, Kay texted me that Liv called her crying at 3 a.m. because Drew dumped her after going through her phone and finding dozens of messages to her friends. Apparently, she'd been calling him financial security with a receding hairline, and admitting she was only with him because his family owned half the commercial property downtown and could help her move into pharmaceutical marketing. Same shit, different day. The best part? According to Kay, Drew forwarded all those messages to his cousin, you know, the bride whose wedding Liv just ruined, who then sent them to their entire family group chat. Liv is basically persona non grata, with half the real estate developers in their city now. Couldn't have written a better ending myself. Karma's a patient bish. Tonight, Tessa's flying in to meet me for a long weekend before I head back to Austin. We've been talking about her possibly relocating there. Lots of opportunity for tattoo artists in Austin, and we work well together. Nothing's decided yet, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited about the future. I don't regret the public exposure. Was it extreme? Sure. But sometimes that's what it takes for people to see the truth. Not just about Liv, but about themselves. I've gotten messages from people who were at that party saying it made them reevaluate their own relationships, their own patterns. One guy even broke up with his girlfriend after realizing she treated him the same way. Life's good now. My business is thriving. I'm surrounded by real people who actually give a shit about me. I'm creating work I'm proud of. And most importantly, I'm not shrinking myself to fit into someone else's bullshit narrative anymore. If you're reading this and recognize yourself in my story, either as the placeholder or the person using others as stepping stones, know that it doesn't have to be that way. Real connections, real love, real friendship, that shit isn't about what someone can do for you or how they make you look. It's about seeing someone for who they are and wanting them to succeed on their own terms, not yours. As for Liv, I genuinely hope she figures her shit out someday. But that's not my problem anymore. And man, that's the best feeling in the world. Edit. Thanks for all the support and awards, Reddit. This community can be toxic as hell sometimes, but y'all really came through with the validation and advice. For those asking, yes, Tessa and I are now officially dating. Took us long enough, but sometimes the best things come after the worst shit in your life falls apart.